Hello friends, welcome to the Chamber of My Thoughts. I'd like to share with you three what I call secrets to make you value them more. 3 secrets to have a real sense of self. They work for me, at least so I think. You've probably at this point watched my video, How to Make Everything About You, which is kind of like how not to have any resemblance of a real sense of self. So we're going to dive in for this short slide down the slippery slope of how you and I can have a real sense of self. And I'm coming to you from Costa Rica, so I've arranged to have every kind of background noise imaginable. We've got birds happening, we've got locusts happening. I promise you dogs will bark by the end of this video. And I've went to the extent of arranging all of that because I care about you. I want you to know I've taken a lot of extra effort to arrange all these background noises that you're enjoying. You're welcome. One of the reasons why I think it's so important for weirdos like you and I to have a real sense of self that's actually based on us rather than things that we're not is, I believe, one of the biggest forms of torture in life, one of the biggest forms of suffering, is thinking that we're something that we're not. Being self-identified with something that's not self. It's like when we're doing that, we're not giving ourselves permission to really inhabit ourselves psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, agriculturally, maybe, ends with L-Y. So I do believe that peace and contentment become a real possibility when we are beginning to self-identify more with what we are, who we are. Who would have thought it could actually be enjoyable to believe that we are ourselves rather than believing that we're many things that we're not? So with that said, let's dive in. The first secret that I'd invite you to considering is be aware of people's projections and hand them back to them. When people project their thoughts onto us about who we are, how we are, what they think of us, those are absolutely based on what other people are thinking. They're not based on us. Little secret. From my delusional point of view, a lot of times what other people think about us, whether it's positive or negative or somewhere in between, it's largely what they think about themselves projected onto us. So if we start to listen closely and start to believe that we are who other people think we are, then we're actually basing our sense of self on their sense of self that they're projecting onto us. If that's not a lightning fast way to lose ourselves, I don't know what is. So be aware when people are projecting onto you, which is basically 100% of the time. And can you go through the subtle mental process of handing their projection back to them? That's what you think of me. That's what you think of me. Hand that back to you. Amongst every other area of my life, I have to be very vigilant when I'm reading video comments. Would you believe people get emotionally charged on the internet? Like, apparently it happens. So when I'm reading people's emotionally charged comments that come up for any video I do, it would be a living hell if I start to believe that person thinks I'm a jerk. Why am I a jerk? And how can I prove I'm not a jerk? Because now I think I'm a jerk because that person thinks I'm a jerk. So I have to like prove myself I'm not that. So that can become a living hell. So I have to remind myself I'm not who that person thinks I am. And then on the other side of that coin, I have to realize when I'm getting praise, when people are saying, JP, you are a genius. You got beautifully red, majestic hair, and you're funny, and you're insightful, and you know how to give yourself compliments. I have to realize that praise is also a projection. It's not who I am. I'm not who other people think I am. Whether they think I'm glorious or they think I'm heinous, I'm not either. If I get attached to their praise, then I'll automatically, like it or not, be attached to the other side of that coin, which is the criticism. I think you and I can consider we are neither. Who we are is nothing to do with who other people think we are. I think we can acknowledge who they think we are. But if we can hand that back to them, that is their thought, it's not who we are, I think we're going to be much better off to have a real sense of self. You with me? Cool. Second secret that I'd invite you to consider is ask yourself once in a while, what do I think of me? When was the last time you did that? JP, when was the last time I did that? Freaking hypocrite, asking all these wonderful people to ask, what do I think of me? When was the last time I did that? I don't know. It's probably been a little too long for me. Now I've got a confession. What do I think of me? What do you think of you? I don't think who we are is really based on what we think of us. So like, we are not our thinking. We are not our beliefs. We are not our thoughts. So we are probably not even who we think we are. But if we're paying attention to what we think we are, who we think we are, what we think of ourselves, there's a truck background noise. That guy cost me $100 to have him drive by in his loud truck. I hope you appreciate that. So if we can ask ourselves what we think of us, at least that is coming from us. It's pointing us closer to ourself rather than listening to other people's thoughts about us. So what do I think of me? Actually, a big time example, just quick story that'll only take 3 hours. That I've had to use this principle so that I can have a more solid, real sense of myself. About a month and a half ago, I released a video on Costa Rica called Costa Rica Welcomes You. Day and a half later, I had to delete the video. I didn't have to, but I chose to. I think it was the right thing to do. And what happened was a lot of people in Costa Rica interpreted the video in a very hurtful way. Lots of anger, lots of outrage. The video was on their national news in a very negative light. I've been told that the Congress of Costa Rica was discussing my video. It's like, well, one, that's kind of ego inflating. Like, wow, I'm that big of a deal to you guys? Like, thank you. And that's not the point. A lot of negativity was coming my way from Costa Ricans, and certainly some praise from Costa Ricans who appreciated the video. But with that said, I was getting death threats, I was getting harassed on the street, and in other words, just to distill it down, there were a lot of people telling me I'm a complete hateful asshole. I'm like, wow, I won't lie to you, that was a lot of adversity. It was very tough to deal with. And it was very important for me to ground myself into me during those times by asking, what do I think of me? I'm seeing thousands and thousands of what other people think of JP examples that aren't super inflating. So I had to ground myself in what do I think of me? So I had to really reaffirm, like, one, what were my intentions of the video? And I had them written down on the script first thing. I always write my intentions on a script before I film it. So I had to ground myself in that. Which came from my sense of self, my intentionality, which came from what I would consider my sincere heart, helping people have improved self-awareness and being able to laugh at themselves. So, and the reality was the video was interpreted very differently than I intended. Got it? See? Dog barking. Told you that would happen. I needed to have the humbleness to acknowledge it was interpreted differently than I intended, but I had to do major work in sinking into my real sense of self, because I guarantee I would have had shattered self-worth, probably take me decades to recover from, if I made my sense of self off of what all these very angry people thought of me. And what's your version of that? What area can you consider you're asking yourself, what do I think of me? Is it something you've done? What do I think of this thing I did? Is it just the general question? You wake up in the morning, okay, what do I think of me today? So that's probably about the most important question we can ask ourselves. And maybe we very rarely ask ourselves that question. Helps us connect to a more real sense of self. Moving along. The third of the 3 secrets for helping you create a real sense of self is question your beliefs. And can you even question whether or not you should question your beliefs? Like, even question that. Why question beliefs, JP? Well, before you ask me that question, let me ask you this question. What are 3 of your beliefs, like top, strongest beliefs that are most deeply rooted in your psyche, even if they're awesome beliefs? What are your 3 most deeply rooted beliefs in your psyche? Now, don't cheat. I really want you to come up with those. Then I'd ask you to look those 3 beliefs right in the eyes, all 6 of their eyes, because the species of beliefs has 2 eyes, and question them. What if this isn't true? What if this doesn't serve me? What if this is complete BS? What if this isn't true? What if there's a deeper truth? What if this has been misleading me? Why do we question those beliefs? It's not an act of throwing your beliefs down the garbage disposal. It's an act of unattaching from your beliefs. And unattaching from your beliefs, from my beliefs, means I am no longer self-identified with this belief. This belief, even though it registers in my head, it's not me. When I believe my beliefs, it means I am very self-identified with my beliefs. I'm getting a sense of self off of something that I am not. Therefore, I'm disconnected from myself. Therefore, my ability to be happy, enjoy life, and have a hope in hell of feeling peaceful sometimes is compromised. I like meditation. I believe it's good for me. Can I question that? What if it's not? What if I waste my time meditating? What if I meditate just so I can tell other people I meditate and I can have a sense of significance over other people? I don't know. But it feels good to question that. By the way, I'm going to keep meditating, but it feels good to question that because I don't identify with my meditation as much anymore. And therefore, by the way, if anybody starts to question something that a belief that you are very in belief of, that typically is when you and I get defensive. It's because we're self-identified with it. It's like they're questioning who we are, then our sense of self, its life is in jeopardy. But really, like, our life isn't in jeopardy because that's not who we are. So when someone starts to question a belief that we no longer just automatically believe, we can question that belief ourselves, then it's like we have this beautiful elasticity and tolerance where we can actually be playful and enjoy when people question our beliefs, and we can actually grow from that rather than getting outraged and defensive at beliefs that we think we are when they're questioned. Moving along, the 4th of the 3 secrets for creating a real sense of self, I almost forgot the topic right there, is ambitiously charge into your feelings. Do you feel the intimidation of my stare at this point? I hope so. I believe a real sense of self is largely based on the feeling sense that we have. Can you and I become the warriors of life that don't cowardly run and avoid our feelings, but we actually look at our feelings, all of them, the uncomfortable ones and the pleasurable ones, and we walk into them because they're our feelings. Can we do that? If we don't do that, if we don't have a solid connection to our feelings, then we don't have a feeling of ourself. Our feelings are generated by us. They may not be who we are, but they're a freaking fingerprint of ourselves. So when we're connected to our feelings, we have a feeling-oriented connection with ourself, which I would call a real sense of self. So when we don't have that, get to the point, JP. Getting there. When we don't have that, we feel very empty of a solid sense of self. So that's when we start looking to the outer world and start desperately begging for anything to be about us. I want to identify with everything. I'll identify with this group, this religion, this philosophy, this practice, this crappy belief about myself. It's not me, but I am so desperately hungry because I'm starved of a feeling-oriented sense of self. I will eat complete junk food because I'm that hungry. I will eat junk food that's so junky, it is rotten garbage. It's not even food anymore. So that's largely what I portrayed in my video. It can come across as sometimes as a very narcissistic portrayal of everything's about me, but really that is someone who feels very empty inside, and they are desperately eating everything around, trying to fill up a solid sense of self, and it's not going to happen. You're not going to get much nutrition eating out of a dumpster. With that said, you and I made it. This short 3-minute video is, I'm sure, significantly longer than 3 minutes. I intended for it to be 3 minutes. I'm delusional. I have no sense of time. On a good day, I have a real sense of myself, but no sense of time. So I appreciate you joining me. Would you be willing to take on these 3 challenges that are somehow 4 challenges, because I don't like to be compliant with math? The first one, of course, is be aware of projections, hand them back to people. Number 2 is ask yourself once in a while, what do I think of me? Number 3, question your beliefs. Number 4, ambitiously charge into your feelings. Thank you for joining me here. I hope you have a little bit more of a real sense of self today, and I'll talk to you next time. Promise.